like this. When you go to heaven, there will be three surprises. One is the people who you expect would be there, they won't be there. The second surprise would be people who you don't expect to be there will be there. And the third surprise would be that you would be there. So it's a place of a great joy, isn't it? So that's the beauty of the company of believers. When we are here in this world, in this foreign land, what happens is every life has its own story. I'm a preacher today, I'm standing before a mic, I'm telling you, but if I gave you a chance and say, okay, let's take the session off and ask people to give one testimony after another. Brother Arun was telling, we have so many examples of God's providence. Brother was telling, I can tell you so many stories, you can tell so many stories. We all have stories, yeah. We all have stories to tell. In fact, if you want to say, every immigrant has a story to tell. Okay? Now, please listen carefully. The reason why God brought you here to this country is basically, this is my strong conviction. I don't say opinion or belief, I say this is a strong conviction. God works mightily in the lives of people out of their comfort zones, out of their land. When you're not in your own land, when you're in a different place, God works mightily. Look at Moses. He was not in his house. He was in the desert. That's where the bush was burning. He spoke to him. Look at Joseph, how God picked him up. Look at Daniel, how God picked him up. So when the people were out of their comfort zones, God always spoke in a miraculous way and did wonderful things. Now, Daniel, I see a lot of young people also, and therefore this must help you too. Daniel is a very great example of standing for the Lord with 100% commitment. To give you a backdrop of who Daniel is, Daniel was one of the chief guys in the kingdom of Babylon. In Daniel chapter 5, last verse, King Belshazzar was killed, and the Medo-Persians, they occupied the country. But in Daniel chapter 6, you find that this same Daniel, who was a prominent man in the kingdom of Babylon, is a prominent man again in the kingdom of the Persians. Why would anybody want to pick up a same person who was a very prominent in a different kingdom and get him into his kingdom? Usually that's not the practice. When President Obama came, he removed all the other people. People said, oh, White House is going to be whitewashed. People will be wiped out. There will be a new set of people. The people he likes, he'll bring. You look at your school system. The secretary and the principal, they travel together. Am I right? Yeah? Wherever the principal goes, secretary will go along with that principal. An officer would have an accountant, a driver, and his PA always with him wherever he goes. Because the PA knows the accounts, the PA knows who are the PR relationships, driver knows where this man goes, accountant knows where the money comes and goes from. So you have your own set of people you will bring. But here you find Daniel is somebody who was a prominent man in a different kingdom, but he becomes a prominent man in another kingdom, which is totally different. There's something very prominent in these people. There were some people who stood for the Lord, and God exalted them like anything. When you study the book of Jeremiah, Nebuchadnezzar came to attack Judah. At that time, the only one person who got a royal treatment, who got the greatest respect from Nebuchadnezzar, was Jeremiah. He says, don't touch him, don't harm him. I've heard a lot about you, Jeremiah. Nebuchadnezzar sends word and says, you're a great man. And you got a royal treatment where all the other people were being deported, they were all being dragged, they were being, persecuted. Jeremiah gets a royal treatment. When you stand for the Lord, that's the whole idea of the first 6 chapters of Daniel. From chapter 7 to the end of the book, you find it is all visions. So, let's try to study the life of Daniel in the first 6 chapters in the small time. Now, Daniel was deported. You don't like this word at all, right? Yeah, very, very tough, very dangerous. he was actually, you can say, let me give you a good feeling. He was, sent to, taken to Babylon from Judah. He was taken to Babylon in 605 BC. He was, there's a first deportation, first time. When the people moved, Daniel was a young man. He was a teenager. And when he came, what happened is, when you come to a new country, there are certain things you are allowed to change. We all anglicize our names, isn't it? Yeah? There was, when you were in India and somebody came and he was your friend, and then after some time he sends you emails, and later he comes and sees you, and that guy's name was Jay Kishan. And then when he comes back from the US, he says, he tells everybody, I'm Jackson. Really? Jay Kishan becomes Jackson. Krishna becomes, Chris. Oh, really? Is it wrong to change your names? No. You have to anglicize your names here in the country. When I go to Indian community, I say, my name is Chandra. My name is Chandra Rudrapathi. When I'm in an American community, I say, I'm Chandra Rudrapathi. They can't pronounce, Yeah? They ask me, what's your last name? How do you pronounce your last name? When I tell them, they say, okay, can you spell it, please? Yeah? Or then when they ask me, can you tell your last name? Then I say, give my ID and say, look at it. Yeah? Or when some of your last names are very difficult. They're qualified to be in the spelling bee, is it not? So when they can't pronounce, what do? You change it accordingly to help them understand. Is it wrong? No. Is it biblical? I can say yes. There are a lot of biblical things that we don't do. Okay? Brothers, are you Brother Sridhar? Yeah, the owner of the house will stand there, I know that. So, who prepares coffee in your house? Who is it, sisters or brothers? Who prepares coffee in your house? Sisters or brothers? Both? No, if it's both, it's unbiblical. It's only brothers who have to do that. You have to change. You have to change, fellows. You have to change. The men have to make the coffee. You know why? He brews. Yeah, he brews. So it's not she. So now it's a good chance for sisters to say, you make coffee. I just wanted to wake you up. Okay, Daniel. His name was changed. Look at Daniel chapter 1 and verse 4. Young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. He was to teach them the language, the literature of Babylon, and the king assigned them food. So what happened? Verse 7. The chief official gave them new names. To Daniel, the name Belteshazzar; to Hananiah, Shadrach; to Meshach; and to Azariah, Abednego. You see what happened there? Their names were changed. So did they learn the culture of the country? Yes. Did they learn the language? Yes. Yeah. Did they learn the literature of the country? Yes. They came to a point where they were ready to adapt into a lot of areas. Now, I want to encourage those people, like first generation immigrants. I mean, you may say, should we learn American accent? Yes, you should learn American accent. You should be understandable to the other person. When I came first time to this country, when I was totally a British English guy, I was teaching English to engineers and doctors, but there's some words, I would say, people won't understand. Then I said, what's happened? Man, I'm an English professor. This fellow can't understand. He's not even half educated like me. Then I said, no, that's problems with me, because I'm not able to speak in their accent. And then I started working on. So these people learn the accent. These people learn the language. Daniel and his friends. Now please remember, there are certain things we take for granted in the book of Daniel. The first thing is, we do not know the age of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. People think they're all same age. It's a question mark. Nobody knows that. They might have been older. They might have been of Daniel's age. We don't know. They were friends. Why can't you have a friend of an older age? Can't you? You can have a friend of an older age. So, but we don't know their age. What happened here is, these people, their names were changed. And of all the people, these people were separately written, and they were recorded in the book of Daniel. Were there not other people in the land of Babylon, taken captive from Judah? There were a lot of people. But you find these four people stand apart. They stand separate. Now, what kind of person was Daniel? Daniel was a man whose life was soaked in prayer. He was a man full of prayer. If you study why he was put in the lion's den, when he was put in the lion's den was when the decree was made that nobody shall pray to any other god except the king. Bible says, knowing fully well the law was passed, he opened the windows toward Jerusalem. He had to suffer problems. But you see the end of every time there was a problem. Okay, we'll come to that slowly. Now you find this man he's ready to change his language, ready to change his literature, ready to change his names and everything. But verse 8, but Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. He allowed everything to change, but there came a point where he put his foot down and said, no way, I'm not doing this. Now, can the king kill this fellow? Yes. What is the status of Daniel? He's also H1, isn't it? Yeah, that's true. He's H1 guy. He's in a new country, and can the king kill him for being disobedient? He can. But this man was ready and said, I allowed my change of language, learned the literature, I learned everything about Babylon, you changed my name, everything was fine. But this food that you put before me, I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to eat. The Bible uses a word called he resolved. He resolved. You know how the American culture here is, right? When an American says yes, it is a yes. If it's a no, it's a no. That's why when you go to the visa office, window, when you go for the interview, when he says sorry, you won't get the visa, don't say please sir, please, I tried so much, please. He won't change his mind. He won't change his mind. He's already decided, I won't give you. Yeah. Then you come back, it's a different story. When I work with a lot of students, so I know wonderful stories about the window at the visa, counter, amazing stories. One day one lady asked one fellow, what's the color of your socks? He said, black. Rejected. Fellow, go home. When you have to be street smart, do you think I'll come and check your socks if you tell me some other color? I'm on the other side. I want to know whether you're street smart. Yeah? There was one brother who was supposed to come to this place to preach. You all know him. And at the counter, this lady asked, what are you going for? I'm going to preach. I'm a pastor. Okay, did you prepare for the sermons? He said, no. No? Why? He said, what if I prepare and you don't give me the visa? I'll be wasting my time. I said, 10 years granted, go. He came to your place. See, we are a different group of people here in the country. The moment somebody sees you, like brother was giving his testimony, we were in a Korean church and this pastor was saying, are you Indian? You should ask Brother Ephraim about the testimony. How we got such a wonderful facility for this conference. It's the results of prayer, God's faithfulness. When we are here in this place, what happens is people look at us in a different way. How much are we adapting and how much are we taking our stand? What Daniel did, he said, I'm not eating this. Now, back up a little bit. How did Daniel, or why did Daniel say, I will not eat of this food? Why did he say that? It's because
offered to the idols.
Because basically it was offered to the idols, and basically because he knew the scripture. He knew in Leviticus chapter 11 what can be eaten, what cannot be eaten. Now therefore, as a preacher, this is my desire always. Whenever I preach, I want people to go home and study. I want you to spend time in the Word of God. As J.C. Rao uncle was talking, we spend so much time on a lot of things. But how much time do we spend on the Word of God? We don't. My desire is always that when you listen to something, it's, this is something I need to study. So you go home and study the Word of God, because David said, I have hid thy word in my I have hid thy word in my library so that I may not sin. Is it not? Did he say I hid thy word in the library? He said I hid thy word in my heart. You have to study first. You have to study the word of God. That will tell you. You cannot say I don't know. Ignorance does not condone you. This man knew the scripture, and therefore he said, I will allow everything to change, but I won't allow you to let me eat this food. He took a decision, he resolved. Now listen carefully, one very important thing. When you take a stand for the Lord, please remember, God will always come by your side. Daniel did not know how his life was going to take turns when he came as a teenager. He didn't know what was going to happen to him next. But he said, I'm going to take a stand. Now, when he took a stand, what happened? The man who was in charge of feeding these guys, what did he do? He said, okay, you want 10 days time? I'll give you 10 days time. Listen to this carefully. When you take a stand for the Lord, Lord will send somebody who will give you favor. You will find favor in the sight of God, in the sight of people, when you take a stand for the Lord. There are three kinds of people in any church or any place. Number one is compromisers. They're compromisers. It's okay, everybody's doing it, why can't I do that? Right? That's compromises. The second type of people they are followers. They are followers. They'll follow you. They'll see you doing something and they say, oh yeah, then she's doing good, let me follow her. The third group of people who are called leaders. There is a group of people who will be trying to imitate you, learn from you. Either you're a compromiser, or you're a follower, or you're a leader. You know what kind of person Daniel was? He was a leader. Who was Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego? They were followers. Please listen carefully. When Daniel made that resolution that I will not eat of this food, you know who followed? Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego followed. They didn't make a decision. The Bible doesn't say, Daniel 1:8, that these three boys also made that decision. It was only Daniel who made the decision. When Daniel made the decision, there are people who said, we'll follow you. John chapter 21. You see, Peter says, I will go fishing. I'll go fishing. And there's a group of people along with him. What did they say? We'll also go with you. We will also go with you. I tell you, if you flip the story, and if Peter had said, let's go to see Jesus, you know what they would have said? Let's go to see Jesus. I was at the airport coming here, and there was one two Indian families there, and there was one small boy and his sister. And this boy was playing with this, what do you call this? Stroller. He was playing with a stroller. And seeing him, his sister also started playing, and she was getting too excited. She's going all over the airport. And the parents they don't know how to control this boy. And I don't know who they are. I called this boy and say, come here. Yeah, his name, they call him Chiku there. I said, hey Chiku, come here. He said, did you see whatever you're doing, your sister is doing? He said, yeah. I said, if you're a good boy, your sister will be a good boy. A good girl. If you're a bad boy, your sister will be a bad girl. I don't know what happened after that. He didn't make any mischief. That's exactly what happens in our lives. Whether you want or not, there are people who are watching you and want to imitate you and follow you. If you're a compromiser, you will lead them astray. You do not know what kind of a leader you are. Everybody is a leader at some point of time. If you want to see who are leaders today after the service, I can tell you who the leaders are. We'll all be sitting after some time, and suddenly somebody will go and say, Akka, can I help you? Right? Somebody will go and say, okay, let me help you take these wrappers off and then arrange the food. You know who they are? They're leaders. Who's a leader? Not somebody who has a title or a position. In every place you have some position. And Daniel was a leader, and he had people to follow. That is Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. Daniel made a great, powerful impact in the lives of his friends. My dear brother and my dear sister, when you take a stand for the Lord, you will make an impact on those who follow you, and you do not know who is following you. Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego were around Daniel, but there are some Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego's around you and you don't even know who they are. They are watching you. They say, this sister is strong, this brother is strong. I want to be like that person. I want to imitate her. Paul says, imitate me as I imitate Christ. So there is, at every level, there are people who will try to imitate one another. Therefore, what Daniel did that day was amazing. It made an impact on the lives of these people. And then ultimately, you know what happened? These boys started living in the same apartment. You know that? All of them lived together. Now, God gave, verse 17, to these 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. So Daniel had a special ability. Okay. Now, in chapter 2, you find a very, very strange situation. This fellow, Nebuchadnezzar, is, what is Nebuchadnezzar known for? Sleeping a lot. Because he gets a lot of dreams. He gets a lot of dreams, so he probably is sleeping more. So he gets a dream. He calls all the astrologers and the magicians and enchanters and says, this is the task before you. I got a dream. Tell me what's the meaning. So these guys said, sir, tell us the dream. He said, no, you tell me the dream and the meaning also. He's such a fool. Really, that's what you'll talk in heart of hearts. Once you leave that premises, premises, when friends are talking, that's what, how you, said about your principal also. And the king says, you have to tell me the dream and the meaning also. Otherwise, I'll kill you. Really? Is it not an impossible situation? Tell me something. Freeze the frame. Say you are there with Daniel. Daniel came and told you, Anna, that fellow, he wants us to tell the dream and also meaning, and if not, he'll kill us. Is it not crisis? It's not an ordinary crisis. You could be killed. No fault of yours. What did they do? Daniel chapter 2. The astrologers, this is what they said. There is not a man on earth who can do what the king asks. In other words, they are saying, it's not possible, man. There is nobody who can tell you what your dream was. Tell me something. If I ask you, tell me what dream. I got dream last night, okay? I got a dream last night. Tell me, what was my dream? Tell me. And I don't have power. I can say I will kill you. But that fellow said, if you don't tell me my dream, I'll kill you. And these people said, look at the statement, a very profound statement by his own astrologers and his own officers in the kingdom. There is not a man on the earth who can do what the king asks. No king, however great and mighty, has ever asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or astrologer. What the king asks is too difficult. No one can reveal it to the king except the gods. And they do not live among men. The biggest crisis of Babylon. Verse 14. When Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, had gone out to put to death the wise men of Babylon. You know what? Alright, I didn't get my dream. So go ahead, kill them, kill these fellows. So Arioch went to do what? To kill the people. Kill the wise men. Daniel spoke to him with wisdom and tact. He asked the king's officer, why did the king issue such a harsh decree? Arioch then explained the matter to Daniel. At this, Daniel went into the king and asked for the time so that he might interpret the dream for him. Okay? Got the extension. Then did what? Verse 17. Then Daniel returned to his house and explained the matter to his friends. That's why I said they all lived in the same place. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, that is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He urged them to plead for mercy from God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that he and his friends might not be executed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. This is where you find the power of corporate prayer. This is an example of corporate prayer. When people came together, they brought the crisis before God, gave it to God and said, Lord, help us. There was a girl in a church, in Vijayanagar Colony Church. She was diagnosed with cancer. She was supposed to die. The whole church came together and said, we want to pray. You know what happened? God healed her. She's married now. She now has 2 kids. God can do amazing things. There are certain impossible things in your lives. People say it won't happen. No way. God will work that out. I don't know how God is speaking to you as I say these words. But I want to tell you, I want to encourage you. God can do amazing things for you. Such an impossible thing, Andy. It's humanly impossible. The magicians themselves said, how can it win? If you tell the dream, at least we'll try to give you an interpretation. Man, this man says, no, tell my dream. Highly impossible. The prayer unlocked it. What happened? God gave the dream to Daniel. Now think about this. When Daniel went to tell the dream to the king, listen very carefully. The king would not need the interpretation of the dream. The moment Daniel starts telling him the dream, you know what would have happened? I can imagine the visual. Nebuchadnezzar's eyes would have been brighter. Man, the moment he says, sir, you had a mountain in your dream. Hooray! That's exactly what I had. In my dream last night I had a lion. Yeah, literally a lion which came through a door, came and was holding my calf with its teeth. Did nothing. It's holding me there. I was saying, don't put any pressure. Don't bite. I was saying within my heart, this was my dream. I mean, see, even if I asked you, even if you said something, some of you wouldn't even get an idea that I had a lion in my dream. But if you say, Chandra, you got a lion in your dream, what do you think I'm going to do? The rest of what you tell is going to be 100% right. Because, what did they say? No human can ever do this except gods, and they don't live among men. And Daniel said, you had this dream. I tell you, the moment this man began explaining the dream, Nebuchadnezzar said, I got the answer. Okay, so what was the dream? So, verse 27, no wise man, enchanter, magician or diviner can explain to the king the mystery he has asked about, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in days to come. Your dream and the visions that pass through your mind as you lay on your bed are these. What was the dream? You find this was a statue. This was a statue. What was the structure? You find the head of the statue was gold, silver, chest and arms silver, belly and thighs bronze, legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of baked clay. Would anybody dream a dream like this, Andy? Yeah, a statue. What this man, so interpretation was what? The head, the gold, is Babylon, and then you find arms and chest is silver, bronze, belly and the thighs, and then you go down. So the quality of the metals is coming down, but the strength is growing, right? And then what is the interpretation? The interpretation is about different kingdoms. Different kingdoms. What happened was, after this man, Daniel gave the interpretation. See what happened. This is where I'm coming to. Verse 46. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell prostrate before a teenager. Can you hear that? And those days, Babylon was like America. Superpower. Can you imagine President Obama coming and falling prostrate before a teenager? That's exactly what happened here. King Nebuchadnezzar came and fell prostrate before a teenager and paid him honor and ordered that an offering and incense be presented to him. The king said to Daniel, "Surely your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries, for you were able to reveal this mystery." You know what happened here? Listen carefully to the timeline. Because of the trouble that Daniel had, when he depended on the Lord, you know who got the glory? God got the glory, and the proclamation was made all over the country that it is Daniel's God who is the real God. Your problem might and will certainly bring glory to God in a foreign land. Daniel chapter 3. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, 90 feet high and 90 feet wide. And then he said, "We're going to play music. Once you play this music, you're supposed to fall down prostrate and then worship this image." In this story, in chapter 3, you don't find Daniel. I don't know if he went on a July 4th vacation, I don't know. But Daniel wasn't there. See, what Daniel made an impact on these three other people who said, this is the language they use. When the music is played, you're supposed to bow down to this image. Verse 16. Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego replied to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar," when you're supposed to say, "O Raja," all these things, right? "O dear King, your highness." And they call him by name. Yeah, in Indian culture, if a kid calls anybody by name, you should see the reaction on that man's face. Yeah, the other day I was there, and then this small kid, 7-year-old fellow, and we have a brother in New Jersey, and we were having a party, and this kid said, "Hey Robert." That man said, "Sir, nee kodukulan per bet vilstunara." See, in American culture it doesn't matter, but here he is a king. And the context is they have defied this man. They said, "We will not bow down." See, you don't bow down and you call the king, "Hey Nebuchadnezzar," and he'll get mad, I tell you. They say, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it, and he will rescue us from your hand, O king. But even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." Why did they say this? Why did Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego say that we will not bow down even if God does not save us? There has to be reason, right? You cannot just out of the blue say, I won't worship. Daniel resolved not to eat the food because he knew the law. Here you find these people say, "We won't worship the image." Why? Come again?
They know the commandments, 10 commandments.
Okay, good. Let me explain that point there. You know why they are in Babylon actually? Because of their idolatry. They are used to that. Baal, Ashtoreth, or where did they come from? Asherah pole, where did they come from? They came from neighboring countries. The reason they are in Babylon is because God is punishing them. So that's nothing new to them. You know why Shadrach, listen carefully, why Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego did not bow down to this idol, you know? Because the idol was made of pure gold, head to foot. What was the vision that God gave dream that God gave to Nebuchadnezzar? The gold was only up to the head. He made the image all the way from head to foot with gold. So what does it mean? It is kind of rebelling against, and God says, "Hey, you told me my kingdom will be only up to the head. See, my kingdom will be all through, from my head to the foot. The statue, that will be my kingdom." The kingdom is supposed to start with silver from the arms and the chest, but he made a statue of pure gold from head to foot. It's a defiance, and said, "My kingdom will stand forever." And they know because they prayed for it. They prayed for such an impossible thing, and God revealed it to Daniel, and therefore what happened? They said, "You are totally wrong, Nebuchadnezzar." That's the confidence you have when you have a revelation from God, when you have God spoken to you. When God speaks to you, you don't have to worry about anything. You can be the most adamant and the most stubborn, obdurate fellow in the whole world when you have a word from God. వాగ్దానములు ఇచ్చి వాగ్దానమును నెరవేర్చి దేవుడు కాబట్టి He gives a promise. Once He gives you a promise, you don't have to worry about anything. You can go against the whole world because God gave you that word. Your dream was gold only up to the head. Nebuchadnezzar, you made a gold statue head to foot. You are going against God. Therefore God will not help you. He'll help us. And even if He does not, because I know God will not change His word, we will not worship this idol. What happened? King got mad. He got these people tied. And he got them thrown into the furnace. Increase the furnace intensity. And the people who threw them, they died. And they are in the fire. They were tied and they were thrown. What happened? They started walking. And there was a fourth person in the fire. What did the fire do? When they came out, they couldn't even smell the fire. Even their hair or clothes or whatever. But what did the fire do? What did the fire do? It burnt only the ropes. Can a fire be selective? Can fire be selective? Okay, I don't want to give an example about this house, a beautiful house. Okay, but if there is a fire, would the fire say, no? Yeah, if there's an electric shock, that's coming through Arun and say, Arun, it's okay. Then comes to Ephraim and say, no, I won't hurt Emmanuel. No. And then he'll go there and I can hurt her. The law of science doesn't allow that. Will the fire be selective? Here in this case, the fire was selective. It didn't burn the hair or the clothes or the people, but it burnt only the ropes. When you take stand for the Lord, God can even shake the whole science for you. When Joshua was fighting that day, he said in Gibeon, hey sun, you stand still. What happened? God stopped the sun. God stopped the sun. God can do mighty things for His children when they take a stand for Him. That's what you see here. And after that, what happened? Look at what happened here. Verse 329. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, who has sent His angel and rescued His servants. They trusted in Him and defied the king's command. See, this is a statement from the king himself. They defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any other god except their own God. Therefore I decree the people of any nation, that is, in His kingdom, people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego be cut into pieces and their houses be turned into pile of rubble, for no other God can save in this way. That became a law. That message went all over the country. Another thing that I want you to remember, that day when these three boys, even in the absence of Daniel, the decision that they made is a turning point in the history of Israel. What's the turning point? From that day on, when Emmanuel said this, I answered this question. The reason they were in Babylon is because of idolatry. They were worshipping other idols. But after that day, till date, July 14, 2013, no Jew has ever bowed down to any idol. It is those three boys that started this history. A new chapter in Israel. The decision of three people. God can use ordinary people. And He has done great marvels. Chapter 4. Okay. Now King Nebuchadnezzar is kind of person who's wishy-washy. He'd be too excited and say, wow, your God is great. And then he'll say, make another statue. Yeah. He'll say something great and then he'll change. That's the kind of person he was. And then he got another dream. So I told you this fellow sleeps a lot. He got a dream. And then Daniel interpreted that dream for him also. What is the dream? That you will become an animal. You'll become an animal. See, verse 25. You will be driven away from people. And this time this fellow was gracious enough. He told the dream. Okay. Verse 25, 425. You will be driven away from people and you will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like cattle and be drenched with the dew of heaven. 7 times, 7 years will pass by you until you acknowledge the Most High sovereign over the kingdoms of men and give them to anyone he wishes. The command to leave the stump of the tree with its roots means that your kingdom will be restored to you when you acknowledge that heaven rules. You know what is God trying to do all the time? You know what is there in the heart of Nebuchadnezzar? My kingdom will stand. My kingdom will stand. I will be a ruler all my life. That's what Nebuchadnezzar is saying. But God brought this situation in the life of Daniel, in the life of Nebuchadnezzar. You know why? Because God wanted Nebuchadnezzar to acknowledge that, Lord, you are the one who rules. What happened? After 1 year, he was on the rooftop and he thought, oh, my kingdom. He became an animal. You go and tell anybody, by next month you'll become an animal and eat grass in this lawn. You see what will happen. And here this is a king. You tell this to a king, and 1 year later this man became an animal. After 7 years, these are the words he says. Daniel chapter 4 and verse 34. At the end of that time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes toward heaven and my sanity was restored. Then I praised the Most High. I honored and glorified him who lives forever. His dominion is an eternal dominion. Whose words are these? Nebuchadnezzar, who used to say, my kingdom shall remain, my dominion shall remain. Now he has come to this understanding and says what? His dominion is an eternal dominion. His kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as he pleases with the powers of heaven and the people of the earth. No one can hold back his hand or say to him, what have you done? Interesting thing about Daniel chapter 4 is, listen carefully. Daniel chapter 4 is written by Nebuchadnezzar. You see that? Daniel chapter 4 is written by Nebuchadnezzar. He says, King Nebuchadnezzar, this is how it begins. To the people, nations, and this is the story. And see, this man is now a changed man, isn't it? Now this man is writing his own. You read the biographies today. It will be all about I am great, this, that. This man is writing about his own failure. Which fellow will write and say, I became an animal, I am the superpower, and I became an animal and I ate grass like an animal, and there was spittle on me, there was dew on me, and for 7 years I lived like an animal and now I'm back to the palace. Will anybody say a story like this? God brought this change in this man. You know why? All the time God was working on this man through a person called Daniel. You really don't know who you are influencing. I see most of you work as teachers. You might be influencing a principal. It's so difficult to talk about God in the schools, isn't it? So difficult. But I will show you people who are standing for the Lord. And you may say, Chandra, you want us to go back to India, what? They'll send us back home, man. I'm talking about this situation. Do you think Daniel was different? He could have been killed. At least you can be sent home. You're still alive. Then you can be killed. That's what the risk is. But Daniel said, I'll stand for the Lord. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, else we'll stand for the Lord. That determination, that standard they took for the Lord was that God carried them through. Here you find in Daniel chapter 5, you find Belshazzar, it's not Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar is gone, and now you have, let me read this verse in chapter 4 and 37. Now, I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt and glorify the King of heavens, because everything he does is right, and all his ways are just, and all those who walk in pride he is able to humble. Who's saying this? Nebuchadnezzar. And he says, I'm an example. I thought I was superpower. He made me an animal. Right? If you exalt yourself, God will humble you. But if you humble yourself, God will exalt you. Humble yourself in the sight of the Lord. In the due time, He will exalt you. My mom always used to say this. Humble yourself. Humble yourself. God will exalt you. Humble yourself. God will exalt you. And that's so true. That's so true. And you find here, Nebuchadnezzar says, I thought I was a superpower. I became an animal. Okay, move on. In chapter 5, you find this man is having a celebration, and there's a big celebration going on. They're eating and drinking. Suddenly the finger of God came. The finger of God came. Your kingdom is over. Babylonian kingdom was destroyed in chapter 5. Come to chapter 6. It pleased Darius to appoint. Who is this Darius? Who's Darius? He's a Persian king. Chapter 5 verse 30. That very night Belshazzar king of the Babylonians was slain, and Darius the Mede took over the kingdom at the age of 62. So who is this man? It's a different kingdom. In a different kingdom, what is Daniel? Chapter 6 verse 1. It pleased Darius to appoint 120 satraps to rule throughout the kingdom, with 3 administrators over them, one of whom was a Daniel. So in the next kingdom also, this man is a prominent person. Is a prominent man. And then verse 3. Now Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. So God gave him promotion even where? Even above the 3 people. So this is what I want to tell you. Wherever you're working, be faithful and be the best teacher, be the best bank manager, be the best student, or be the best in what you're doing. I won't tell you this man's name, but there was one man who used to tell us, I worked in the government of India, man, and I used to go and sign and go out and do ministry. Monday morning he'll go sign, chit chat with some people, go out, do ministry, and come back. Every day this is what he's doing. He retired. One day I was supposed to go for meetings. He called me and said, Chandra, let's go for meetings. I said, Uncle, I just joined the college, I cannot. మేము కూడా ఉద్యోగాలు చేసినాము, కొత్తగా ఉద్యోగం చేసుకొని పెద్ద మాట్లాడుతున్నాడు. మేము ఉద్యోగం చేసినాం, 30 years I worked. I used to go and just sign and go. How are you getting salary? Why are you not working in the office? You sign and then go out and you say I'm doing God's ministry? Are you not stealing the government money? Be faithful where you're working. Be the best teacher. Be the best employee. That's where people will say, see, whatever we give him, he'll do it. He's the best employee. That's what we need to be. That's what Daniel was. And then what did they say? Verse 4. At this the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to do so. They could not find no corruption in him, because he was trustworthy, neither corrupt nor negligent. Finally these men said, we will never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel, unless it has something to do with the law of his God. You know who gave this certificate? The fault finders. People who were fault finders, they were trying to trap him. They said, we can't find fault with this man. What a testimony that is. We cannot find fault with him. And then they went to the king and said, okay, nobody should pray to any other god, it's only to you. And look at verse 10. Now when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs rooms where the windows opened toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before. You know what it means? Listen to this. He took risk of his life just to pray. He risked his life to pray. You know what you and I would do? we would say, Lord, you understand my situation. Yeah? The government said we cannot pray. I came to this country, I'm a nobody, Lord. I'm still waiting for my labor clearance. I'm still waiting for visa extensions. So Lord, you understand my situation. So I will say, Lord, I'll pray in my heart. The situations we have to understand, Lord. So I'll pray in my heart. Daniel could have said that. What happened? Nothing. Just as usual. Okay, the law is passed. Was the law passed? Oh, you cannot worship any other God. All right, no problem. I'm going home. He goes home and the windows are open. And the fellows say, see, the windows are open. Daniel is praying there. And they catch him. They take him. And the law says he has to be put in the lion's dens. In the lion's den. Was he put in the lion's den? Yes. People are... I saw one thing on Facebook. A cockroach and a boy were talking, it seems. Yeah? Cockroach and a boy were talking. The cockroach said to this boy, I am more powerful than you. And the boy said to the cockroach, how? He said, your wife is not scared of you, she is scared of me. People are afraid of dogs. Right? I have a dog at home. And the people call beforehand, is your dog home? Yeah, he'll be at home. He's very friendly. He's very, very friendly. He wants to be around kids. He wants to be around people. But still, people are so afraid. Oh, you should see the way people scream. Yeah? And they say, take it away, take it away. With the dog, this is a lion. And this is a lion's den. Not one lion there. He is thrown into the lion's den. You know what God did there? Daniel chapter 6. And verse 21. Daniel answered, O king, live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. When the king put this man in the lion's den, you know who lost the sleep? The king lost the sleep. He didn't sleep. Daniel should lose the sleep. Yeah, remember, it is all smelling, and these lions don't have any common sense. They can, even if they don't do anything, they just come and sit beside him, like my dream, they came, you'll be saying, oh my God, please. God shut the mouths of the lions, and early morning Darius came, and he said, Daniel, look at the words. Daniel, verse 20. Daniel, servant of the living God, your God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions? You know who was put on task? Who was put on the challenge? It is not Daniel. It was the God of Daniel. Daniel, was your God able to protect you? And he says, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And the fellows who planned all this trick, they were thrown, and even before they entered, the next day the lions ate them up, it seems. Because of this, what happened? Look at chapter 6, verse 26. I issue a decree. Who's this man? Darius. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom, people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. The stand you take for the Lord brings him glory in the world. For he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. Who is saying this? A king. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders. In the heavens and the earth, he has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. So Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. One more thing I want to tell you here. After the captivity of Babylon, the temple was built. Yes? It was built under Cyrus. The money was given by Cyrus and Darius. The temple was built in Jerusalem. You know who was the counselor? Daniel. In the construction of the temple, you don't find the name of Daniel. In the reconstruction of the temple second time, you don't find the name of Daniel. But the man who played a powerful role was Daniel. The stand you take for the Lord will impact people around you, can shake the nation in which you are. At the same time, people will start worshipping that God because if you are taking that stand. But if you're a compromiser, Daniel wouldn't be even mentioned anywhere if he was a compromiser. My prayer for you is that we all be people who take a stand and say, Lord, I will be steadfast. Because that brings glory to God in our community and also in the whole world. May God help us.
Thank you, brother. You're almost closing.